So you ready to get started? How's it going, everyone? I am absolutely excited for this conversation today. I'm speaking with someone who has his hands in many worlds, from entrepreneurship to organizing and certainly education. I'm speaking with Kenneth Allen. He's currently a candidate. Sorry. I'm gonna run that back. This should be on Do Not Disturb too. All right. How's it going, everyone? I'm super excited for this conversation today. I'm speaking with someone who has their hands in so many worlds. I wanted him to talk about his at-large candidacy to lead the Indianapolis Public Schools. So without any further ado, Kenneth, please tell us who you are and what you have going on in your world as you're counting down to a major election.
Yes, thank you so much, Jordan and Politicking, for this opportunity to share. I've always appreciated and celebrate the wonderful work that you all are doing globally through the means of technology. So again, thank you for this opportunity to share. My name is Kenneth Allen. I am a native of Gary, Indiana, born and raised, product of the public school system. I tell folks all the time that I was in public school even before I got here. My mom was a public school educator for over 36 years before she passed away. And when she had me, she was working in the school. So I've been in education around my entire life. Most people know me from my early starts in Gary. I started my first business in Gary, Indiana, 24th in Virginia. It was a candy store that was out of my grandfather's garage. Started a business not because I was trying to be an entrepreneur or a business owner, but my mother, single parent, just couldn't always afford some of the things that I wanted and needed. And so I thought about creative ways how to help and support, and started a candy store. And little did I know that that would turn into something extremely major, and also help her when I was making about $500 to $600 a month selling candy after I paid my employees there in Gary, Indiana. And little did I know that I was doing economic development, because for some of my friends, this was their first summer job working in my candy store. But that really birthed my passion for entrepreneurship education. And through my foundation, the Kenneth Allen Foundation for Entrepreneurship, we've been privileged to train over 10,000 young people on entrepreneurship and financial literacy, all of the US, as well as Nigeria, Senegal, Trinidad, as well as Barbados. And in addition to that, we know that, prayers move heaven, but money moves earth. So it's great to teach young people entrepreneurship. Yeah, it's great to teach entrepreneurship, but our children need to have the resources. So I've given out 25,000 cash of my own personal money to help launch those businesses immediately once they navigated through our program. Growing up in Gary, very community oriented. My mother taught me that it takes a village to raise a child, and to whom much is given, much is required. And so I've tried to be an asset, a community leader, a community servant. So for the last 12 years, I've sat on the Indiana Commission for the social status of Black males. I've been privileged for the last 4 years to be the chair. For those that may not be familiar with the Commission on African American Males, it was designed or put into law in 1993 by Representative Vernon Smith out of Gary to really study the condition of African American males in 5 focus areas: criminal justice, social factors, employment, education, and health. And when I looked at the data, particularly around our African American children in the educational landscape, Jordan, I was devastated to see the disparities that exist between our children of color that are matriculating through public schools. And I felt that, given all of my connections, my experience, my passion for teaching entrepreneurship, financial literacy to young people, my direct work with young people, that I couldn't sit on the sidelines and not do something. So I decided to throw my name in the hat and run for Indianapolis Public School Board at large. And for folks that don't know, it is on the ballot along with our president. So we ask that you vote the entire ballot, not just, president. And even clicking the Democrat or Republican ticket won't do anything for school board, as we are bipartisan or not partisan. So we don't have to be affiliated with any particular party. So that's why I'm running. I'm running because I know that we can do better. to educate our young people in public school. I know that it's important that we teach entrepreneurship and financial literacy. I think it's important that our children see themselves reflected in the curriculum as well as the classroom. So I'm excited about this opportunity, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being here. You said something that was important about not just voting with this sort of narrow view that only thing that happens on election day that really matters is who wins the presidency or who's
Mm-hmm.
retained in the presidency. And I definitely want to get into why you think that it's so important for people to understand how important the other offices are, but especially the office that you're running for. But first, I kind of want to stay on your candidacy. And, you know, you're a worldwide guy, right? Um, a lot of people, and you know how our people are. Sometimes they want to, why are you doing this? Why are you not doing something elsewhere? And I'm sure you are doing other things, right? But what they want to know a lot is probably why you ended up running for the Indianapolis rather public school system. You know, why not sort of take an entrepreneurial stab at impacting the school board? And I'm sure I have a couple of ideas why you are specifically pursuing this office, but I'd like for you to talk about why you thought it was so important to invest your time into running for this particular office.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, first and foremost, I'm a parent of two school-age children. I have a son and a daughter, and I want them to have the best and brightest future that they can possibly have. They're both matriculating through public schools as we speak. So that's the first reason. I think that it's very important to have a parent's voice on the school board. Too oftentimes decisions are made at the school board level, and it doesn't have a whole lot of parent influence with the decision making. And so I want to make sure that I provide that additional parent voice at the school board as we try to make decisions that are best for our children. But the other thing too is I've been fortunate to participate in a few different political, I guess, boot camps. One is the Congressional Black Caucus Leadership Institute that they do every year. I'm a graduate of. And when you think about really having an impact and really being able to shape policy, you can't get any more local than your school board. Even if you don't have children currently navigating through the public education space, it's important that you pay attention because they use your tax dollars to fund education. And so if you want to know what your tax dollars are doing, if you want to really make an impact, if you want to hold legislators accountable and policymakers accountable, you have to pay attention to the school board. And we have an opportunity as a school board to really educate our future. These are the folks that are going to be our doctors, our lawyers, our judges, our entrepreneurs, and even our teachers. And so why not utilize my skills, my ability, and my youthfulness to be able to connect and hopefully make a difference and make our public school system one of the best in the nation.
Yeah, you know, parenthood, I think, as you articulated, offers a perspective about schools and about a lot of the issues that young people are facing that, you know, no other posturing might be able to. But I want to know what some of the other issues are that you see our children facing, if not those that you hope to lead schools nationally. You know, this is such a special time, too. I think the issue of education was already something that wasn't talked about enough. And so a lot of the issues that were inherently present in the education systems are just exacerbated by a pandemic. But I want to hear from your perspective what some of the things are that you're most concerned about.
Yeah, absolutely. So me, I told you that I started my first business as a 12-year-old. I wasn't trying to be an entrepreneur, but what I was at that time was I wasn't the CEO, chief executive officer. I wasn't even the CFO, chief financial officer. Jordan, I was the OO. You know what the OO is? That's the
What's
only
that?
operating. That's the only operating officer. So I took out the trash. I answered phones. I did delivery. I did stocks. I did payroll, paying my employees
Yeah,
that worked in
I
my
can
candy
relate.
store. But all of those skills helped me be successful in every aspect of my life. And more importantly, it was a game changer for me to come home with $250, $500 some months to be able to help my mom with some expenses. That changed our economics for our our home. It also did the same for my friends. And so while I do think that our district, particularly, and even some other districts across the country, do insert financial literacy and entrepreneurship as a part of the curriculum, oftentimes it's inserted at the middle school and high school level where they feel like children have a better understanding. But I want to make sure that we insert it at kindergarten and we continue that conversation through 12th grade, so that when children have matriculated through the public school system, not only are they prepared to enroll in a 4-year or 2-year institution if they desire, not only are they prepared to enlist in the military, or if they just want to work, not only are they prepared to get a job that's going to pay them a livable wage, but they also have the skills and the knowledge to start their own business and create wealth for themselves after matriculating the public school system. The other thing that I think is very important, I was privileged growing up in Gary that, 98% of my teachers looked like me. That had a huge impact on my educational experience because those teachers held me to higher standards. There was some accountability there. They even taught me things that maybe necessarily weren't not in the curriculum, but they knew that I needed to know as an African American male growing up in the US. And the other thing too, which is kind of what I alluded to, is that the curriculum that we utilize in public school is important. Here at Indianapolis Public School System, we have about 60 different countries represented within our district. The majority of our children are over 70% are children of color, Black and brown. And it's imperative that when they go to school, that they see teachers that look like them in the classroom. They see school leaders who look like them in the classroom, and they also see themselves reflected in the curriculum. I can remember being in 3rd grade at George Washington Carver in Gary, Indiana, and remember seeing this
Shout out
gentleman.
Carver. Yeah.
Yeah, shout out to Carver.
Yeah.
I can remember seeing this gentleman whose name, I didn't know him at the time, but his name was Vernon Smith. He was in my social studies book. When I saw that Black man in my actual school book, it was the first time that I actually saw somebody in a school book that had hair like me, that looked like me. And it made me want to sit up. It made me want to pay attention. And I think that's the case for a lot of our children. When they can see themselves reflected in the classroom, they can see themselves reflected in school leadership, in teachers, they tend to want to pay attention. They tend to not want to disappoint the people that look like them, who kind of understand them. They can also talk to them in the language and in the cultures that they understand. So I think, entrepreneurship education, having school leaders and teachers that look like the children they serve is important, but also it's important that we have the teachers in the classroom have the resources that they need to be successful. My mom, when she was an educator, she had a little closet she can go to and get construction paper and scissors, right hand scissors and left hand scissors and glue. Oftentimes our teachers in public education now they have those supplies, but they have to purchase them with their own resources. That should not be the case. We should be making sure that our teachers who are training up not just our future, but our present, have all the resources they need to be successful, to be able to teach.
I want to talk to you a little bit about what you think is something that is lacking, and what do you think is really not occurring to folks that doesn't get them hyped up all the time about a school board race, or that doesn't even get them to run, that makes them feel like, I got too far into like making my money or whatever, despite the fact that, like you, they're parents, they have children that they want to make sure are living healthy lives and have good options in school. What do you feel the disconnect is, I think, in terms of the perception that the school board might not have as much day-to-day engagement in our lives when they have the most? Like you said, it doesn't get any more local and impactful than that.
Yeah, so I know that everybody is not as passionate as I am about politics, but the example I often use to try to make it, more realistic for people is that when you are in fact born in the state of Indiana, or any state for the most part, but definitely Indiana, you are not officially born until you have a birth certificate from the county health commissioner. And usually the county health commissioner is either an elected or appointed official in most counties in Indiana. If you die in Indiana right now, you're not officially dead until the county coroner comes by and writes a death certificate out. And usually the county coroner is usually an elected or appointed official. Well, what's your point, Kenneth? So from birth to death, politicians control your life in some aspect,
I
and
love that.
policy controls your life. So you may not want to run for office, but it's imperative that you get understanding of how much policy dictates and controls your life. One of my first jobs when I moved to Indianapolis from Gary was I worked for all 100 representatives. I wasn't an intern, but I was the page program director. And with the page program, for those that may be viewing this and not familiar with the page program, it's an opportunity where you can come down to the State House here in Indianapolis, meet your legislator, get a tour of the State House, learn how a bill becomes a law. Oftentimes in that program, the 2 years that I served there, I didn't see a lot of children taking advantage of that program that looked like me. So fast forward when I became the chair of the Indiana Commission on African American Males, I'm sorry, vice chair, working with then Chairman Eddie Melton, who's now Senator Melton, we created what we call the Young Black Males Matter Day, where over the last 4 or 5 years, we've taken almost 1,000 African American males from all across the state of Indiana to the State House, what we call Young Black Males Matter Day, where they learn how to advocate for things that are important to them, where they learn what the different branches of government do, where they have an opportunity to interact with their legislators. I think oftentimes people don't run for office because they don't know all the rules, they don't know the qualifications. And I like to put a new definition on community leader today. You know, oftentimes we think of people that we see on TV or Instagram or Facebook that are getting a lot of publicity, out doing marches, and those are great, and we need those people. I'm out there as often as I can be. But if we look at a community leader, I heard someone say the other day, and I really liked it, as people who can lead their homes. So moms, parents, grandparents. If you can lead your family, if you can lead your children, you are in fact a community leader. And if we put that as a new definition of what a community leader is, I think that more people will feel empowered to take their leadership experience to the next level. And that's what I'm hoping to do by running for school board, to take the fact that I've been leading in my community, I've been serving in my community, and I just want to take those same leadership skills, those same experiences to the school board as a parent, as an advocate.
You know, I'm so curious as to what you think about the landscape of your race. You know, we talked a little bit about this offline, but I'd be very interested, and you don't have to mudsling by any means, if you know, but if you could just kind of paint that, maybe what the urgency is for folks to vote for you over some of your contesters, and is this a competitive race? Is this a race that, you know, you really want to urge people to research all candidates, or should we just know Kenneth Allen and Kenneth Allen only? You know, tell us just about what the reality is with this race.
Yeah, absolutely. So there, in my particular race, it is an at-large seat. And I like to tell people that when you think of a school board race, particularly at large, you're like, first of all, what is an at-large seat? Because there are 4 school board races on the ballot here in Marion County. There are 3 district seats and 1 at-large seat. And so I'm running for the at-large seat, which represents the whole district. So when you look at it from a numbers perspective, my race is bigger than the city-county race. It's bigger than the state representative race because there's about
Wow.
200,000 voters in the Indianapolis Public School District. And so when you talk about a race of a whole city, and Indianapolis being the biggest city in the state of Indiana and one of the biggest cities, the 14th largest city in the country, it's a huge race. So it takes a lot of resources, a lot of support to be successful. But this is one of those races I definitely encourage you to research all the candidates. Not to be super confident, but I think my resume speaks for itself. My entire life has been devoted to serving directly young people. My first opportunity to really engage with young people was actually in Gary. I spoke when I was about 10th grade at Banneker Achievement Center to some young people who
Shout
had an
out
interest
Banneker. I'm a
in.
Banneker alum. That's ground
Awesome.
zero for excellence. I know you're a Carver guy. Man.
Well, you know, my mom worked at Banneker when she was there when she passed. So, you know, I have a special place in
Yeah.
Banneker.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but I spoke to the 5th grade class there, and I remember this gentleman came up to me after I finished speaking, He was like, man, I'm going to be just like you when I grow up. Now, at the time, Jordan, I was only in 10th grade, but I had started my store. I've been teaching other kids about how to start their own business, but I was extremely flattered. But I'm like, man, we're not even that far removed. Like, you could be my little brother. But I appreciate it. I didn't think anything of it. Fast forward a few years later, I'm in college and I get like an email out of nowhere. It say, hey, Mr. Allen, this is Brandon Griffin. You know, you talked to my class in 5th grade, and I told you I wanted to be just like you. I want to let you know that I started my own business. I started an IT company when I was in the 8th grade, and now I'm a freshman. And the school district is one of my clients, and I'm making really good money, man. I really appreciate it. You know, now Brandon is 26, still doing extremely well, still has his own business. But I'm like, man, that's the type of impact when we're able to teach our young people financial literacy and our entrepreneurship. So that's, you know, people a lot of times say, well, you served over 10,000 young people. Tell us some success stories. I always like to highlight Brandon's story because he's a product of public schools. He's still, still an entrepreneur to this day. But I think that for the races, particularly school board races, these are the candidates that you can speak directly to. Like my phone number is on my campaign website. Like you
Yeah.
can call me directly. So if you've heard some things about me or you have some questions, you know, you may not be able to call Donald Trump or Joe Biden, but you can call Kenneth Allen. You can go to our website. You can interact with, you know, us on social media. It's not an assistant. It's not some staff person or some robot. So I think the other thing too is that people have an opportunity to interact with candidates. You know, I was out yesterday here in Marion County where we had record-breaking numbers of folks who came out to vote. I think over 1,200 people voted, early voted at Marion County. Some people even taking 3 hours because there was so many people in line. And even today it was out greeting voters. And I think people like the ability to connect with people they're voting for. And so I think that, you know, with a school board race, you have that opportunity. If you're willing to engage, you have an opportunity to reach out to them and get your questions directly answered by that person. And you don't always have that case in the congressional race or in the Senate race or in the presidential race. You're going to get a campaign staffer. With me, you get me if you reach out. So if you have questions, but I think that, you know, my experience in teaching young people and working with them directly, over 20 years of board governance experience, working on both state boards as well as local boards, I think that my resume speaks for itself. And I think my heart is definitely there with the people.
You touched on accountability, which I think is so critical, obviously at the national, but certainly at the local level. I'm wondering how you feel about it as it pertains to maybe some of the folks who might be your colleague on the school board, or as it pertains to a potential new governor, as it pertains to the governor we have now, and all sort of folks that we see in our day-to-day lives. Obviously not in 1600 Pennsylvania, because as we were talking about, you know, what happens at the White House is important, but the stuff that impacts our day-to-day lives certainly does not start or end there. And so I'm wondering how you try to really perpetuate and push that culture of accountability. It sounds like you've said that within your answers in a couple of ways, but I'd like for you to address it directly.
Yeah, accountability and transparency is very important as a school board. You know, one of the things that I pride myself on is that I didn't start going to community events and being out in the community when I decided to run for public office. I do about 100 community events in my local neighborhood every year. So I'm always at festivals, at events, either volunteering, serving, or just attending to support because they're in my community. So I think that, you know, as a school board member and a new school board member, which I hope to be on November the 3rd, is that we have to make sure that we're including the voice of our teachers when we make decisions. We're including the voice of parents when we make decisions. But one of the voices too that's missing oftentimes when school board decisions are made is that we don't talk to young people. We don't see what their thoughts and what their feelings are about these decisions. And so I think that because of COVID and because of a lot of the technology that's available, we have an opportunity and an obligation to be innovative and creative on how we interact with parents, teachers, and students. You know, oftentimes board meetings don't always permit young people and teachers and parents to have their voice because they're so structured. in the meetings. They're in the evening. So if you're a parent that has, multiple jobs and you work a third or a second shift, you may not interact with a school board meeting. So we as leaders and school board members have a responsibility to maybe have multiple meetings, maybe do it at different times of the day, do it on weekends, maybe provide childcare, maybe find resources to feed parents to make sure they're able to get, their dinner as they're participating. So, but I think that that's one of the things that has been missing from the board, the current board. And I guarantee that when I'm elected, we will make sure that we have accountability, but most importantly, transparency. And I think that technology has afforded that those opportunities to be transparent in that manner.
And so, in addition to really pushing transparency, what are some of your plans when you're elected? What are some of the priorities that you're identifying and keeping your eye on for once you take office?
Yeah, I think the number one priority for me as a new school board commissioner is going to be COVID-19 and how we handle that. The first thing we have to do is we have to check in with our students to make sure that their social and emotional needs are being taken care of. But we also have to check in with our parents and our teachers to make sure their social and emotional needs are being met. I don't think the district can take on this huge responsibility by themselves. So it's going to be important that we continue to partner with neighborhood organizations, community organizations, the business community, to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our students. One of the things that definitely keeps me up at night, Jordan, is that uh, I know I wasn't a straight A student. I know I even struggled in college doing, some online courses because I'm a type of person that has to be physically in the room. I learn better when I have that one-on-one conversation. When you think about our children that are deaf and have special needs, this virtual learning is not the best thing for them. And so we have to make sure that we're providing resources to those schools, to those principals, to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our children that, English is their second language, and our children that are struggling with different deficiencies and special needs. So I want to make sure that, first of all, everybody's okay. Once we check the temperature of everybody, both figuratively and literally,
Right, I like that.
I think that, the next step is making sure that we're addressing and meeting the total needs. So it may mean that we have to add in additional services to make sure that we're meeting needs. It may mean that we have to work with our legislator or our city leaders to make sure that not only do our young people have a physical device, iPad or laptop, which most of them have in our district, but they have access to good quality internet, to good quality Wi-Fi, so they're able to connect and communicate with with their teachers and get their homework done. And then the second piece of it is this racial equity. I mean, it's huge. When you look at the gap, the achievement gap between our Black and brown children in our school district, it's alarming. I mean, it's just looking at the data, it would just make you cringe. And so we have to make sure that we're developing a plan to address that specifically and to make sure that we have outcomes that we can have some tangible things to fix that achievement gap. It's not going to happen overnight. It is going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take from the leadership down to make sure that we're addressing it. I also think that, a lot of our children that matriculate through the public school system, they don't want to go to college. They don't have the desire or the resources. So we have to make sure that we have options for them. And so I've had conversations with carpenters and the unions, and they want to, they want to fill these jobs. And, children can graduate from high school and go and make good money in the vocational trades and be able to have a really good life for their families. So I think we have to push it. I know for me, when I was going through school, we had wood shop in middle school and high school. Somewhere along the line, some of those things got, withdrawn from the public school space. So some of the things that we did in the past work really well, and we just have to reinvent them and get creative how we reintroduce them to our students.
Absolutely. One of the last questions I have for you now, we did talk about the fact that the presidential election is not the end all be all as it pertains to November 3rd, but how are you feeling about the presidential election? It's impossible to ignore. Our former governor is going to be under the microscope tonight. He's already been, whether people love him, hate him, he's a large part of these last 4 years. And so what are you thinking about the election? And full disclosure, we're a nonpartisan platform. And so I'm asking that genuinely, what do you think?
Yeah, well, the good news is school board candidates are nonpartisan as well. So, we don't have to
There we
declare a
go.
party. We don't have to declare a party at all. But I think that this is the prime opportunity to really engage our community. The engagement I saw by going down and greeting voters who were early voting was phenomenal. But I really think that if we really want to engage a population for this election, and a population that's really been paying attention, it's that 18 to 24 population. If that group gets energized and excited and push their power behind a candidate, that candidate will do extremely well. But I think the fact that we have an African American woman on the ticket for vice president,
Howard
I
grad.
think, huh?
I said a Howard grad, not to mention.
Oh yeah, HU. Yeah, I think that is just history in the making. When I showed my daughter a picture of me and Kamala Harris, and she just lit up because she had almost a similar experience to me when I was in elementary school, and I saw Vernon Smith in my book. It was like that same experience. She was like, "Daddy, you mean I could be like a vice president too? I could be potentially be president." And so, what that's doing for our children of color to see themselves highlighted in such a positive light with everything going on in our community and our country, I think is just phenomenal. So I'm excited about the debate that will take place tonight between the vice presidential candidates. I'll be watching with popcorn and
Yeah.
excited to witness history in the making.
There was something I can't remember what it was. Like it was a clip. You can't hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Let's see what's going on with this.
Can you hear me okay?
Can you hear me? Uh, let's see. Can you hear me? This is so weird. Hello? Hello? Let's see. Can you can you hear me at all?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Oh goodness. See, this internet has just been as hell today. But I was saying there was a picture or a video. I literally cannot remember what it was, and I'm really not a crier. But I started like just feeling tears roll down my face because it was a girl talking and react. She met Kamala Harris. She had met her and the girl was getting emotional and I was like, I'm getting emotional. I'm like, oh my God. But it's really one of those things, like you said, where we're experiencing history and not just the kind that we like to say is history, but the kind that we'll read about hundreds of years from now. Maybe not us, but the folks after us will wonder, how was it to have experienced a Kamala Harris's bid? And we're living it at this moment. So it's definitely special. I want to thank you for taking time despite all of the connectivity drama and despite your very busy schedule. We're less than 4 weeks out from the election and you took the time to speak to us about your bid. I would like for you also to tell people how they can follow you, how they can donate, and how they can stay connected up until the election.
Yes, thank you, Jordan, so much for this opportunity. And I truly appreciate all the work that you're doing, really engaging that 18 to 24 age group with politics and what's going on, not just locally, but nationally. And so I really appreciate the work that you're doing. I know I follow you all and I try to keep abreast of the conversations that you all have. But yes, if someone's watching this and they have a district question and they live in the district or just have a question about my background, like I said earlier, I'm a school board candidate and I'm a local guy. You can reach me. We have a website, www.kennethallen, that's Kenneth, Allen, Allen, for IPS, that's FORIPS.com. Again, www.kennethallenforips.com. We're also on social media, so Kenneth Allen for Indianapolis Public School Board at large. We are also on Instagram at Allen for IPS. That's ALLEN, the number 4 IPS. And then you can reach me directly at 317-821-7484 or via email at allen4ips@gmail.com. We would love to engage with you. So feel free to follow us, like our page, and ask us questions. We love interacting with voters.
Kenneth, thank you again. I don't know if you are a drinker, if you aren't, but I would encourage you, if you've had a long day, to participate in our drinking game for the debate tonight. But in all seriousness, I would also like you to participate just generally in our interviews, as you already have. We'd love to have you back. As you move into a new term or election. I would also love to hear how things are going, right? It's always fun for some to campaign, but the real work starts once you've taken office. So I want to thank you again.
And let me say this too, because you made a good point before we leave. You said the real work begins, when I win, and I absolutely agree with that. But I too, as it relates to accountability and transparency, the real work also begins for the citizens and the voters to hold us elected officials accountable. So that means that you're going to have to go to your school board meetings, you're going to have to go to your hearings, and you're going to have to follow up to make sure that we do what we said we were going to do when we're campaigning. And so I'm one of those people. Hold me accountable to my platform and what I said I was going to do.
Well, you guys heard it here first. Thank you again, Kenneth. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
All right.